and welcome to another week of Soap Secrets, and we've got some great goodies for you this week. We've got Victoria Wilson being the number one goodie with us, talking about all things Holby. Hi, Victoria.
Hi, Hannah.
And we've also got Claire Rock, our second goodie. Last but not least, Claire Rock, talking about the rest of the soaps. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Hannah.
Okay, so Holby, it's the day of Andrei's heart operation, isn't it, Victoria?
Yes, it is. Big day for Andrei. And troubled surgeon, as we know, troubled surgeon Keir Madani is he's all pumped and sort of ready to go and ready to be the one to save his friend. Evie, we know he's become involved with Evie recently. She comes up onto Darwin to wish Andrei luck, but Dad Fletch is having none of it. He's already made it clear that he doesn't want his daughter anywhere near Andrei. Anyway, so we know obviously Keir's got his drug problems, and he's grateful to Lucky. She's been a bit of a friend and a confidant, I guess, for sort of supporting him and getting him clean and for letting him deal with Andrei and not shopping him to social services. Also, he thinks, obviously we know that under pressure from Fletch last week, Lucky did contact them. So this week we find a guilty Lucky basically sort of backtracking, trying to call social services and telling them not to sort of follow up on her previous calls.
It's a bit late for that, isn't it, once you've made the call?
Yeah, sort of move along, nothing to see here type thing. Anyway, so that's kind of going on, but then in the meantime she's kind of working with Kean also. He's about to operate on Andrei, or he's sort of mid-operation, and he sort of comes out to see her. She can see he's sort of got the shakes, and she sort of tries to, it's almost trying to alleviate her guilt, she sort of offers to sort of microdose him so that he can at least get through the surgery. It's just very, very ethical dilemma we've got here. He does take her up on it, and you know, we see him pop a pill so that he can get through the surgery. And I suppose the storyline takes another element as well, where he's like, oh, you know, I'm really grateful to you. We should go out for dinner. And she sort of takes that. We know she's sort of had the hots for him for quite a while, and she kind of takes that he like wants to take things further. So there's a little bit of awkwardness there. Anyway, I digress. Back to the matter in hand. It kind of looks like her secret is about to be revealed, though, when a social worker, Connor Coleman, his name is, turns up. Soap fans will recognise him as Emmerdale's Mark Jordan. So he's quite a familiar face.
I love how they just go between all of them. It doesn't matter. At first, it feels really weird, and then the next week it's kind of, oh yeah. You know.
Yeah, and now he's there. And I thought, when I first saw him, I'm sure you've been in Casualty, but I was wrong. He hasn't. I think he might have been in it briefly, but not as a major character. But yeah, so he turns up this week. And the fact they've used such a familiar face makes me think we haven't seen the last of him. But anyway, back to this story. And Lucky assures Connor that there are no safeguarding issues with Andrei, and he seems to take her word for it. That is until he bumps into Fletch. And he tells him basically all he needs to know about Andrei. Then, of course, when Connor goes onto the ward and starts interrogating this, Andrei's had his surgery by now, and Connor starts interrogating him about sort of who he is, where he's from. Kean realises then that sort of Lucky's betrayed him, and there's kind of a huge sort of showdown between them. But the big issue comes when Kean sort of later finds Andrei, and like obviously the guy's just had heart surgery, and he comes and finds him in this massive panic. He's sort of struggling to breathe. He's trying to take as much oxygen as he can. He basically fears like he's going to be deported if anyone finds out sort of where he is, and that he'll sort of most certainly be killed by the drug dealers that are after him. And then he goes missing. What's more, though, he goes missing with Evie, and when Fletch finds out, he is not a happy man, and he punches Keir and knocks him square out on the floor.
Oh dear, fisticuffs.
I mean, if you think this episode is explosive, definitely tune in next week when events take a very dramatic turn.
Oh, do they now? And Ange and Josh.
Yes.
They're summoned to a meeting, aren't they, by Hanson?
Yeah, it looks like, as we know, they've been engaging in this illicit affair in the corridors and more besides at Holby. It looks like the cat's out of the bag, though, this week when the two lovers are summoned to Hanson to a meeting where he reveals that it's been brought to his attention they've been having an affair, and on hospital grounds to boot. It's quite funny as we see sort of Hanson interrogate, and how they film it. They kind of, you see them, he's asking the same questions to them, but they're both being interviewed separately. He's sort of quizzing them on the ins and outs, for want of a better phrase, of their relationship.
Yeah.
He wants to know how long, when, where, how. Well, not how, but you get the gist.
What I want to know is who shot them, who told him.
Well, I suppose for Ange, obviously, because she's the senior medic and Josh is her junior, them having a relationship, her having a relationship with a junior doctor, it is an outright sackable offence. And then we sort of see there's a touching scene between her and Max McGarry where they're talking, and Ange is kind of pondering whether the liaison has been sort of worth it, so to speak. It seems that she's sort of making she has sort of developed feelings for our boy Hudson, but they are, as you say, they are both, Ange and Josh are both seriously worried for their jobs, so they obviously want to know who outed them. And then Chloe kind of admits that her and Dom saw them coming out of the on-call room the other week, and then both sort of soon suspect that Dom is the man responsible for sort of lifting the lid, as it were. He's not making many friends just recently, so it looks like here he could have made two more enemies as well.
Well, he's also making an enemy of his patient by the looks of it, because his patient wants Sasha to be a consultant rather than him.
Well, it's a patient comes back. She's a frequent flyer, as they say in Holby. She's come back. She's in for a hernia op, and Sasha up to now has done all her previous surgeries. So she's come in, and she's come in at a time where obviously we've got Sasha's been suspended, and Dom is acting clinical lead, and he's determined to make this position kind of permanent. So he's got his smart suit and his swanky office, and he's really trying to make a mark on the ward, really. But obviously, so he hits a snag when this patient, Kathy, her name is, she comes in, and she'll only be seen by Sasha. Dom kind of doesn't measure up. His bedside manner kind of leaves a lot to be desired. So Kathy ends up discharging herself, only to come back in agony. And then Dom is kind of forced to save the day, which he does, and he kind of proves that he's like the first class surgeon that we know he is. When he actually in mid hernia op, he diagnoses her with a tumour and removes it. I mean, he is great. But then it kind of Sasha sort of comes in, and he makes an unannounced visit to the hospital. He's like, I'm coming back to work tomorrow. And he hears about the Dom's sort of triumph in theatre and all of that. And, you'll make a great clinical lead one day. And that's kind of when Dom reveals that day might come sooner than he thinks, as he's going after his job. He wants to be clinical lead permanently. So there's going to be a bit of a tug of war on the ward, it seems, between these two. Yeah. I mean, this storyline reminds me of the old saying, be careful how you treat people on the way up, because you never know who you might meet on the way down. And I think Dom's perhaps going to learn that.
So true, isn't it? So absolutely true. Every industry is really quite small.
Yes, 100%. And that's definitely going to, Dom isn't covering himself in glory here. We know he's had a rough trot, but it's just how you deal with things. And Sasha isn't really the enemy. He's only ever really tried to help him. So we want these two to work out. We do. But obviously it makes for great drama along the way.
Oh, thank you very much. Another absolutely great episode. As you say, pretty explosive. Okay, so we have a double dose of Casualty this week, don't we? Again, which is fantastic.
We have we've got a double episode, and we have Lev and boyfriend Xander actually go out on a date to a cafe. But of course, it doesn't go that well. So Lev was brought up in a culture where it was sort of frowned upon to be gay, and so he's really struggling to actually accept that he is gay because of this this upbringing, you know. But we see him take leaps and bounds. We see him take leaps and bounds with boyfriend Xander, and they go out to a cafe for a date. And he's really nervous. You see him sitting there looking, wow, what should I do? I'm really, really nervous. And he pushes himself. And we think things are improving for him, Hannah. We really, really do. And then a man named Sam makes a homophobic remark. And Lev doesn't take it well. And there's a big row. And the pair get kicked out of this really nice cafe. And Xander doesn't take that well either. So the pair have a row. And things don't really end well for them. But ever the paramedic, when Lev finds Sam in medical distress, he calls an ambulance and tries to help him. But things become heated in the ED when Sam, who's been beaten up by drug dealers because he owes money to them, makes a homophobic remark in front of all of Lev's colleagues and Xander. And Lev does what he does best. He punches him. He loses his temper, doesn't walk away from it, and he punches him in front of everybody. Well, a paramedic can't do that, can they, Hannah?
No, I mean, it's sort of one of the golden rules, isn't it? And you see lots of, if you go to hospital, you see loads of notices, don't you, saying that, you know, the kind of antisocial behaviour won't be tolerated from the public. But it kind of goes two ways, I guess, in this situation. But having said that, it's 2021. Who on earth makes homophobic remarks? I mean, it's quite unbelievable, isn't it?
Yes, he makes, this Sam makes really horrible homophobic remarks. So he won't talk to Jan because Jan obviously has to make a report. He just won't talk to Jan. Sam makes he makes a complaint to the police. He's not talking to anyone. He's really upset. Has he lost his job? And has he lost Xander, who is seriously unimpressed?
Well, he's lost his cool, hasn't he? And that's not brilliantly attractive, I guess.
And then we also have Ethan. Will he put his big boy pants on and tell Phoenicia how he feels? Will he, Hannah?
I'd like him to. It feels like he should. But the trouble, he's not going to, is he? He's just going to push her away.
And it's even worse this week because he's helping a man with a head wound with Dr. Rash, and they're it's a really nasty gash, and Ethan's about to sew it up, and all of a sudden he has an involuntary muscle movement because we know he has Huntington's, and his hand seizes and he can't use it. Anyway, he covers it up very quickly and just says to Rash, "You finish this off," and stalks off somewhere, and everyone's looking a bit confused. But he hasn't told anyone, and he's thinking, my days as a doctor over. You can see that all this emotion is going over his face. And because of that, he decides to push Matthew towards Phoenicia, because Matthew, her ex-fiancé, has joined the department as a locum. Of course he has.
Yeah.
Of course he has.
And there was unfinished business. We know that from last week, don't we? It was, she was the one that jilted him. There's a bit of a story there. He's never really gotten over it. Oh, will it be second time lucky for them? Or poor Ethan. It's not especially when he's sort of throwing her into the arms of a man who really does, want to be with her, and who's kind of, after all these years, the fire still burns. And in the second episode, Lev is obviously still very upset.
Yes, he is. He's refusing to discuss things with Faith. He's not going home. He's living in a hotel. He's asking Faith to bring clothes in for him. He's just in an awful fashion. He's in an awful way, and he keeps texting Xander. Xander doesn't want to talk to him. Keeps saying, "Don't call me," and so Faith takes matters into her own hands, and she meets up with Xander. That's an odd thing, isn't it? It's going to be an odd conversation,
but quite tempting to do, don't you think?
Yes, completely. What will the pair have to say to each other?
I can only imagine, and I can only imagine we'll find out too. And also, Tina suggests that she moves in with Jacob this week.
That goes down like a lead balloon. Oh.
Yeah, but also Tina's been flirting with Matthew, and it's all a bit entwined now, isn't it?
Well, she flirts with Matthew to make Jacob jealous. I'm not sure I'd want to make Jacob jealous, but anyway. Yeah. And then she's she's really grumpy all day. She's really unsure why he doesn't want to take this final step. I think it has something to do with Connie. He's not quite over that. And then she has a near miss with a violent patient where a patient hits her. He actually hits her. There's another one being hit.
God, it's a lot of violence this week.
Yeah, and when he sees her on the floor, will he see what is right in front of his eyes and say, "Hey, Tina, move in with me"?
We'll have to wait and see. No doubt. You won't tell me now, will you, Claire? And there's more romance because new receptionist Paul is an old school friend of Robin's, and she warms to him.
Yes, she does. So is Robin's love life about to look up? This is a really sweet story. He's this Paul is the new receptionist. He's a temp. They were at school together. He's been a ducker and diver, and she's straight and narrow nurse.
Oh, it's all going on a Casualty, but as you say, it's two episodes. So, okay, moving over to the Cobbles, Coronation Street. It's a really big week, isn't it, for Peter and Carla, because a liver match has been found.
Yes, it's all systems go for his life-saving operation. But when the call first comes in, Hannah, Peter hasn't gone out with his mobile phone. That's really not a smart thing to do when you're on the transplant list. You need to be contactable 24/7 because these calls come in any time. They do, yes. So
they really do.
Peter is nowhere to be found. But Daniel finds him. Comes up trumps, which is great, finds him and gets him to the hospital. And as Carla waits by Peter's bedside, will the operation be a success?
I hope so. I do like Peter. Been in it for a long time, hasn't he? And my favourite storyline's making a bit of a comeback this week. It's always bubbling away in the background anyway. But Fiz and Tyrone. So it gets particularly ugly this week, which it always does, these kind of things when children are... Well, I say always, that's not actually strictly true, is it? Can do, often become a problem because they're going to start to fight over the custody of the girls, aren't they? And you've got Tyrone spending money like it's water, and this is really angering Fiz, and it's really out of character for Tyrone too, really. So yeah, it's going to heat up a bit, I think, isn't it?
It is going to heat up, and it is heating up this week. It starts boiling, quite frankly. So Fiz is struggling and trying to bring two children up, and she can see Alina and Tyrone living the high life. But when Tyrone double books himself, Alina offers to look after Hope. Now, I can't quite see why Fiz would agree to this, and Hope's a little minx, shall we say, and she doesn't have much experience with children, does Alina? And when Hope convinces her that her mum said it was okay to get false eyelashes, beautician Alina gives them to her.
I can't imagine that. I'm absolutely I mean, I think Fiz has got a lot to say about that, really.
She'll have loads to say because she's little. She shouldn't be wearing false eyelashes.
Of course she shouldn't. And this was always going to reach a head, wasn't it? Because Hope dashes out in front of a car on Alina's watch, and the battle lines are kind of drawn, aren't they, really?
Yes, completely drawn. And she says, Fiz is she's had enough. She says, Ty can't see both girls until there's a proper consent order in place. And Ty goes, what? Ruby's my own child. I mean, Ruby isn't actually Fiz's daughter. She is Ty's daughter, and Hope is Fiz's daughter. But Fiz says no, both girls aren't. You're not seeing both girls. Then when Fiz gets a message from the bank, things escalate, and she marches off to see solicitor Adam.
Good for her. Draw the battle line. Now, Hollyoaks. Evil Fergus is still being evil. He's up to no good again this week, isn't he?
Yes, Hannah, we all know he's really, really evil. And this week, as Grace is preparing to relaunch her nightclub, The Loft, Fergus has plans to sabotage the day. He knows that Grace doesn't have insurance. Now, as a nightclub owner, I'm not sure that's the best policy, do you?
No, I'd say not.
So he knows this, so he loosens the bolts to the new sign above, for her nightclub. And later that day, the bolts have finally worked themselves loose, and this heavy sign falls on top of Darren. leaving him clinging to life.
That's just so awful. Some innocent person that gets caught out in that. Well, it's awful anyway to do it. Sabotage.
It is. We know it's sabotage. And without insurance, Fergus turns up with a proposition for Grace, but can she trust him?
I mean, I'm going to go with no. But it's a really big deal because Darren takes a turn for the worse, doesn't he? And there's a really big question mark over whether he's actually going to survive.
Yes, there is. Well, he's just walking along, and these signs are really heavy. That's a massive blow to your head. Those things are dangerous.
Yeah. And last week we saw Sienna and Summer have quite a passionate encounter. And this week, Brodie and Summer, it's all a bit parallel, are talking wedding preparations. But she says that she wishes her dad could be there. And Brodie says that Damon has actually offered to walk her down the aisle. But, I mean, there's a lot of feelings here that aren't very genuine and real, I'd imagine, or a lot of emotions.
So we all know that her dad was the one that abused Felix, and that Brodie, Warren and Felix beat him up so badly they were the ones that put him in hospital. And he later died of a heart attack. She paints on a smile and says, yeah, that's great that Damon will walk me down the aisle. But later she arranges a prison visit with Buster Smith.
Dun, dun, dun. It's all going on. It never stops in Hollyoaks, does it? It's like high octane every week, and not any less high octane in Emmerdale, because of course the suspects are absolutely lining up. Kim Tate is determined to find out who's drugging her, but her son Jamie spots that she's got a CCTV camera in the house, and she's trying to find out who. I mean, presumably it's right over the brandy bottle, trying to work out who's doing it. And I think he's very upset that she could think that it was him, because she obviously confides in him why she's done it. And doesn't he suggest that they need to get away from home farm? I mean,
that would worry me. But Will makes a business pitch to Kim. Now, Will and Kim have had a romantic dalliance. I'm not going to call it a relationship. I think a dalliance is perhaps a good word. And she's suspicious of his motives, but she's not suspicious of son Jamie. So, as her son, he says he's really, really upset that she would suspect him of such a thing. And he says he should take his mother away for a while because she's been drugged. She needs to get the drugs out of her system. She's been paranoid and upset. And Jimmy and Nicola's marriage is in absolute tatters, isn't it? And Jimmy makes a move on Mandy. I know. Mandy's been supporting Jimmy, and in classic male style, he mistakes her niceness for something else. Mandy was about to get married, and Jimmy was the man that accidentally drove his car into the barn, and her nasty, I mean, he wasn't a great guy, but her nasty ex-fiance Paul died in that. So she's processing a lot of emotion currently, and I would say she's not ready for any kind of relationship.
No, really not. I agree.
She's processing, but she's been supporting Jimmy because she was upset that Paul had been abusing, Vinny, and Jimmy. It was an accident, but he's being charged with causing death by dangerous driving. So she's been there for him, and she's helping him through his court case, and she's saying, do you really want to plead guilty, because that would mean a jail sentence? Do you want that? So she's been giving him good advice, and then it seems clear that Nicola and Jimmy are just poles apart, and that's when he says, hey Mandy, my feelings run deeper than just friendship.
But she's not going to give him the reaction that he wants, is she? And of course then Jimmy, I say of course, it's not an of course. Jimmy tells Nicola he's moving out. And will she and can she fight for her marriage? That is the big question.
It's a good question. Jimmy and Nicola, I think, should be together. I think this is a hiccup in their road. The fact that Jimmy makes a move on Mandy is very typically Jimmy, because he's a bit clueless sometimes, and this is just one of his clueless moments. So I hope they get back together, because they're they're an Emmerdale couple.
Yeah, but you've got to have some ups and downs, Claire. You know that. You've been in this business long enough. And talking of ups and downs, EastEnders has a lot of ups and probably more downs. Linda is worried that she just can't hide her baby bump for much longer. I mean, she's probably right. And she comes to the decision that she needs to tell Max.
Yes, she does. She does. It's a difficult one because she and her husband are going to bring. She and Mick are going to have decided to bring the baby up as their own. They could just pass it off as their own. No one would know, would they? Unless the baby comes out looking like a dead ringer for Max, really. They
might do.
They could get away with it. So, Max left at Christmas. He left, and he's actually in Paris. And this week, Linda thinks, well, I should do the right thing because, Max has lost a couple of children, so it would be nice for him to be a part of this baby's life. And she tries to get info from Denise because Jack, his brother, has taken his granddaughter, little Abby, to see Max in Paris. Will she be able to get a hold of Max and tell him her surprise news?
And how will it be greeted? Max isn't coming back, is he? So... And a couple of weeks ago, we had a little gossip, didn't we, like we do, about, or speculated that Kathy could do with a silver fox to brighten her days and possibly nights. Now, we put our money behind Paul Hollywood. Sadly, Paul Hollywood has not rocked up in the Black Cab. But we have got Sonia's dad, Rocky.
Yes, I know. Lucky Kathy, I would say. Sonia's dad, Rocky, takes a shine to her. Is Rocky the tonic that Kathy needs? I'm speculating on a no.
Yeah, it's always going to be a no, but it will be some nice fireworks in the process, I'd imagine.
I still think she needs someone not like Rocky. I think they should get her a Paul Hollywood character. I really think, she's absolutely gorgeous and... so does she want the funny guy or does she want someone that's going to always be there for her and be sensible?
We've never seen her sort of in a long term, have we? So I guess that maybe perhaps things won't change. And the honeymoon period really seems to be over, doesn't it? Before it even began, actually, for Ben and Callum, because Ben is really not on the straight and narrow, is he? And he's asked Callum to quit his job as a policeman. I mean, it's such a sort of strange combination, but opposites do attract. We know that. But it's not. He hasn't quit, has he?
No, he hasn't quit. He likes his job. Callum was in the army. That's kind of one of the things that perhaps some army guys do. They like it. They come out of the army and they go into the police force. And Callum has a good sense of justice. So yeah, he's really into his career. And last week, Kat got mugged, and this week, Callum and his police colleague Fitzy. They spot this mugger and they give chase. But actually, Fitzy is stabbed, and he's not just stabbed and it needs a couple of stitches. He's stabbed very, very badly. And Callum is distressed and upset about this, and it brings back his PTSD. Ben misunderstands, and a gulf grows between the pair. They're not talking, Hannah.
Is it over before it really even began? That's the big question. Well, thank you, Claire. That's another great week, isn't it? No, it never fails to let us down. I love our chats. We will be back next week, you'll be pleased to know, talking about the next lot of episodes. And we will speak to you then.